All right, let's jump right into this. Welcome to today's explainer, where we're going to break down something absolutely monumental. We are looking at the road to the FIFA World Cup 2026. But listen, we aren't just going to rattle off schedules or host cities. We're diving deep into the raw emotion, the undeniable tension, and the utter chaotic unpredictability that completely defines the greatest sporting event on the planet. Our source material today really strips away the noise and gives us this profound look at the actual beating heart of the tournament. So get comfortable, and let's unravel the story of the champion that literally no one can predict. There's a line from our source material that perfectly captures the atmosphere right before the storm hits. It says, "The stadium is silent, but only for a moment." Just think about that massive, dramatic heartbeat before the running starts, before the crunching tackles, before the roaring crowds. There's this collective, incredibly heavy silence. It's literally a deep breath taken by players and fans alike, right before the whole tournament officially bursts into life. It is tension in its absolute purest form. Think about exactly where you're going to be when that first whistle blows. Because you are part of a scale that is entirely unmatched. On one side, you have the millions. These are the people packed tightly into the stadiums, the diehard fans crammed into city squares, physically holding their breath. But then, on the flip side, you have the billions watching across the entire globe. The contrast there is just staggering. There is simply no other stage on Earth where billions of human beings are locked into the exact same unpredictable narrative at the exact same time.
And that's because the World Cup isn't just a sporting event. It's not. It's a historical coronation where history chooses a new king. The phrasing our source uses here is deliberate, and it's incredibly powerful. The nation that manages to survive this grueling month-long gauntlet, they don't just win a shiny gold medal. They become the undisputed rulers of the world's most popular sport. They're etching their names into history books that are going to be read for generations.
So, to really understand this coronation, we have to look at the kings in waiting, the heavyweights. These are the nations bringing their own distinct, powerful identities and, honestly, their immense historical baggage right onto the pitch for 2026. When we break down these powerhouses by their defining traits, some really fascinating contrasts start to emerge. Take Spain, for example. Their play style is this elegant, tactical ballet. It's basically an art form. But then, right across the spectrum, you have Argentina, defined by the heart of champions. They bring this fierce, relentless fighting spirit that completely clashes with a purely elegant approach. It's just raw grit. And then, well, you have France. They bring the power to completely dismantle any defense. With them, it's not just skill, it's overwhelming, destructive athletic dominance. That's three totally different philosophies, all colliding on the exact same grass.
But beyond tactics, it's also about pure, raw motivation. England is carrying their decades of hope, and let's be real, maybe a few decades of agonizing penalty heartbreak, into every single match. It's a generational weight on their shoulders. Then you have Brazil, who is on an absolute mission to remind the world of their historic birthright, trying to reclaim a crown they view as rightfully theirs. And Portugal? They step onto the pitch for one final chapter. It's a deeply personal, emotional quest for their legendary veterans. Every single one of these nations looks at 2026 and genuinely, truly believes that this is their year. Okay, so if every heavyweight has a rock-solid case for why they should win, how on earth do we predict a winner? Well, the natural instinct is to turn to data, right? Run the numbers. But here is the chaotic reality of it all. Football has never, ever followed statistics. What we're really looking at is the ultimate battle between clinical data and the beautiful, totally unpredictable reality of the game itself. It's a constant tug-of-war between expert probabilities and the human element. You can have supercomputers crunching logic and algorithms on one side, fueling all these endless online arguments among fans who just want to find a mathematical certainty. But once they step on that pitch, human belief fundamentally shatters those mathematical models. The source makes a really definitive claim here. All the expert math in the world constantly fails simply because human willpower cannot be quantified. So how fast do those models actually break? Honestly, it usually comes down to the rule of one. Just one single red card. A split-second referee decision in the heat of the moment, and bam, months of statistical modeling go right out the window. The entire shape of the game instantly morphs into something literally no algorithm could have foreseen. Or, it's just one injury. One unfortunate, awkward step by a star player, a sudden twist of a knee, and the entire gravity of the tournament just shifts. Years of meticulous, strategic planning by a nation are completely undone in a single, unscripted second. Or
Maybe it's one unbelievable goal, a strike out of absolute nowhere that seems to defy physics entirely, a moment of pure, unpredictable individual brilliance. One card, one injury, one goal. That is literally all it takes to render the data totally useless and rewrite history in a fraction of a second.
So, if we can't rely on the stats, and if having the most raw physical power isn't a sure thing, what actually makes a champion? Well, our source material takes us deep into the psychology of winning. It makes a great point. The World Cup trophy rarely goes to just the strongest team on paper. There is a very specific anatomy to the squad that ultimately survives to take the crown.
Ultimate victory really boils down to some hardcore psychological requirements. First up, refusing to give up when physical exhaustion completely takes over. I mean, in those grueling later stages, everyone is tired. Everyone. The winner is the team that somehow keeps running anyway. Second, keeping belief alive when the media writes you off, when the opposing fans are absolutely deafening, and when logic itself says you are beaten. The true champion is the team that maintains that internal fire. It requires this relentless, almost irrational level of resilience that goes way, way beyond raw athletic talent. So, we've looked at the big contenders, the absolute chaos of the data, and the psychology of survival, which finally brings us to the closing moments of 2026. The stage is set, and while the greatest moments in football are never ever written before the match begins, the ending itself, well, that part is set in stone.
Because we all know exactly how the sequence goes. The final whistle echoes across the globe, bringing this massive month-long war to a sudden, incredibly emotional halt. One single nation erupts as decades of waiting finally end in a wave of pure ecstasy, and one exhausted, triumphant captain steps forward to lift the most famous trophy on planet Earth. The script for this exact moment is a guarantee. It's only the actors playing the parts that remain unwritten. Which brings us right to the end of our explainer today, leaving us with this massive, wildly provocative question: who will win FIFA World Cup 2026? As our source makes beautifully clear, absolutely no prediction can promise the answer. The statistics are going to try, the experts are definitely going to argue, but the reality? It will only unfold out there on the pitch, dictated by a single goal, a single heartbeat, and an unbreakable belief. Thank you so much for joining me to break this all down today. Let that unpredictability sink in, enjoy the chaos of the beautiful game, and, as always, keep learning.